Hey, I'm Cheryl.
Hey, I'm Greg, and welcome to the Couple Motivators podcast.
Well, how are you today?
Well, you know, certain
Oh, Lord.
cherries are up in the sky, and
What
you know,
are you talking about? Well, let's talk about our outfits, number one.
where we're matching.
Yes, because we're going to
I
talk
had to
about partnership
I
today.
had to coordinate with her. I had to be in the space of success with her to coordinate with her.
Yeah, so we're going to be because we're talking about partnership. So we decided that we was going to
What are you
coordinate.
touching? What are you touching me like that for in front of these people? Don't
What
do that.
people?
Don't do
You
that.
like when I touch you.
No, look now.
You
Look,
like when I
unless you want
touch you.
couple motivators uncut, like BT uncut, you better tell her to behave herself.
You know what? It's so good that when you still cat it like that, you could just do it from a touch out of on a sweater.
You see what I'm saying? She's starting up stuff.
But you
And
know
then
what? You're ticklish, so I can do that.
see what I'm saying? Look at what I'm going. Hopefully the
You are
ticklish ain't that successful. So what are we talking
Yeah,
about
you
here?
know that you're really ticklish. You're ticklish. He hates when I tickle him. Well, anyway, we're talking about partnership today. What we talk a lot about is co-creating. And we believe that if you are in a relationship, we believe if you are in a marriage, we believe if you are in some sort of situation, a relationship, what they call it?
I don't even know
What
what
the
they call.
relationship situation?
I've heard
Relation.
I've heard situationships. I've heard relationships. I've heard marriage. I've heard we're commingling. I've heard that we don't know what we're calling us. I mean, and you sit there and like, okay, and you can't make judgments on it. You just have to flow with it and be like, you
Yeah,
know
whatever
what?
it is, we go
Whatever
with it.
works for y'all, and it's working for y'all.
But it may
You know,
not
we
be
still
working.
will work with you. Well, you know, it depends. You know, if you get beyond, monogamy, then that could be another story.
Yeah, that's
This
true.
is another. That'll be another.
But
But
let's talk about partnership. So if you talk about partnership, co-creating, like I said, if you're in any type of relationship, we believe that you should at least have some type of entrepreneurship thing going on. We believe that co-creating together, the marriage is something, the relationship is something that you should build on. However, there is
built
ways
on or built through.
built on, through, and on and in. On, through, and in. Because the partnership is just that. It's an agreement. And that is one of the A's that we really, really strive for is that agreement. And the partnership and the agreement works hand in hand. And I remember first going, we had 9 to 5s because let's just be honest, growing up, you was
course, that's all
told
you
you
saw.
get up, go to school,
Get
get
the
a good
job.
job, get good benefits, you stay on that job.
Especially you got a union. Oh,
Yeah,
forget about it.
exactly,
Go get that union job. They can't
exactly,
fire you. Girl.
exactly.
They can't fire you.
But you know what's so ironic? Our kids, the millennial and the G-gens
And alphas.
and the alphas, they have a different temperature of
Oh,
how
they don't even
they
look
beat
for
to
that.
their own job, which I commend them. They beat to their own drum. But in our generation, when we grew up, wait a minute, before I go on that, you know they call us the silent generation? No, not the silent generation. They call us the generation that doesn't exist. They were X.
Well, the interesting thing about Gen Xers, and yes, this still stays on topic about being in partnership. Gen Xers, we were the last generation to know what it is to be rotary,
That's
and
true.
also to be technological.
That's true.
Whereas baby boomers, all they can remember was like just everything was more industrial
It's true.
revolution.
It's true.
We Gen X are the ones that bridged the gap. We went from the 70s,
Yeah, it's true.
from the technically it's from the 70s
And you know that was
until
the best era.
the 70s was the best decade. We're not going to deny that because I can't disagree.
And the
with that.
90s, listen, we grew up in first of all, we were born in the 70s. We grew up with 80s and 90s music. Y'all don't know about that hip hop, that music right there. If y'all don't know about that, we go. I know we kind of like, but this is how we built our partnership. We built our partnership in having those things that we saw together, and we built on that.
Well, the partnership was built upon the fact that we were doing things, we were creating experiences
Yeah.
that added value to the relationship. And so when we talk about co-creation
Yeah.
and co-creating a space, remember, it's not about one way or the other way. It's about recognizing that it is a collaborative
Yeah.
effort. And being in a positively working relationship, a successful relationship, means that your collaboration, regardless if it's entrepreneurial, regardless if it's via communication, regardless if you're 9-to-5ers, if you're both career folks, we're not knocking any of those. What it is, whatever fits your particular and respective relationship is the one that you need to cohabitate in and the one that you're creating.
So the thing is, if you have secrets going on in your relationship, you can't co-create. That's number one. We had to recognize first and foremost when Greg was working, but we didn't have, we had a mission. Like we had a mission that we were going to get a second home, that the type of cars we drove, we wanted to make sure that we lived a certain lifestyle.
You said a very interesting word, and that's probably why some of the things acted a little funny as we were co-creating, because we kept wanting.
Exactly. So what happened was, let me tell you what had happened. We were first generation because my mom, we was raised in an apartment. Your mom was raised in an apartment. So when we started looking at houses, we went to a church, and our pastor was really about owning a home when you're homeless. So we were like, okay, how do you own a home, and what do we have to do? So we did our research, and we got the first home, which we still have that home today. But we said, let's get another home. Then we got a second home. Then
partnership.
Let's get a third home. Then we got a third home. And then we did not know how to maintain the home. It's easy to get, come bring it close, bring your ears close. It's easy to get anything. It's harder to maintain.
And that's where, when we get into, as this conversation evolves during this particular episode, when we started going down the lines of credit, what happened was we started accumulating things that we thought was assets, but they started turning into liabilities. But I'm going to expound upon that, especially when we get into the credit conversation.
Yeah, so first let's give ourselves credit. Let's give ourselves a hand. Change. Hey.
Creme brulee.
Hey, let's give ourselves a hand. Now, this is what had happened. What had happened is that I was in my own business, Greg was in his own business, and we weren't communicating.
Nope.
So Greg lost his job and went into a business. But in that first year of business, we have never been without a 9-to-5. So you had a 9-to-5. So your job was always a sustainable thing. And so when I had ebbs and flow in my business, Greg, the 9-to-5 was like that stabling thing. So when Greg lost his job,
so it was like the rudder.
Yeah. You know what? That was good. Sometimes you do get good, little.
Sometimes I get good.
Here we go. So when you look at this, you got to see how. So when you look at it, I was saying, you made me forget what I was saying. What did I say? What were we saying?
You was talking about the houses.
Yeah, what was I saying? But you can't.
Now she wants to tickle me because she lost her train of thought.
What were you saying? Well, you didn't remember what I was saying. You're talking about the rudder. You said the rudder. What did you say about the rudder?
No, the stabilizer.
Yes. So
the
Greg
job was the stabilizer.
Yeah, so Greg, 9-to-5 was the stabilizer. So when he lost the job, this is what we didn't do. We didn't come back and have a conversation about how we were going to regroup. So we had 2 entrepreneurs in the home, and one was a startup. One was kind of stable, but it had ebbs and flows, and we didn't have that stable and force. And we lost 2 of the homes, actually, and we had to learn and went bankrupt. And
well, I would say those were lessons to be learned.
Yeah, but let's tell the truth. We lost two of the homes. We had lost one of our cars, and we came. They came and got our car. You don't remember that because her.
Well, we didn't lose. Well, if we're gonna tell the story correctly, we lost one home.
Yes.
We lost one home due to the fact of things being restructured, and we wasn't prepared for. And that goes back into the relationship of co-creation. We weren't in communication, and so we did lose the one home that we had.
That's true, because we sold the other home.
We sold the other home, so
Yeah.
we didn't lose two homes. And then, even at that point, when we started to recognize why that flows into the credit conversation, because when you're in a space of co-creating with someone and creating the right habits, you're starting to understand that credit is something that you have to navigate.
Yeah.
And so when Cheryl in the beginning, when she shared the story in the previous podcast, and regardless to when she was going through that lane of BMCC and they were smart. Because I went to Bronx Community College, and they did the exact same thing. All of a sudden, you're going onto the campus, and next you know, you're seeing this credit card company, you're seeing that credit card company, and it's just so gleaming. They're gonna give you a free T-shirt or maybe a book bag or some sort of just fulfilling incentive, just fulfilling this out, and you're recognizing that credit utilized properly can position you for the levels of growth that you wish to experience. So, when it comes to credit in the family, now.
Yeah, because at that point, when we lost one of the homes, the credit, because your credit went from pristine to all the way down.
Well, not all the way down. All the way down.
Well,
would
you
be
did
at
bankruptcy,
300.
so.
Well, what I did was I figured out the laws.
Yeah.
And this is another thing. That's why.
Tell them a little bit about that. What we had to do.
Well, at the time when we were losing that home, and I started noticing that we had expenses or we had certain allocations out there that we weren't going to meet. And so this is not something that we recommend. This is not something that you do ever so many years. But when you recognize that you're going to take responsibility for yourself and you need to reorganize, there are bankruptcy laws out there that assist you in reorganization, because there was a time that we were not handling our credit properly. Between losing a home, as she said, that one time, which I'll never forget. I don't think that was one time and never happened again. When we had our car repossessed, that was her baby. She loved that particular vehicle.
That was a Yukon XL.
That was the first time that she was in a truck that I would say, you had to drive the truck, because initially she didn't want to drive the truck. And as soon as she got behind that wheel, that became her baby. I had to pry my hands away from her to drive my own truck, because now it was her truck.
But you know, there was even grace in that, because I remember when the repo man came to the house, he rung the bell, and he said, "Ma'am, I'm about to take your truck." And he said, "I see you have items for the baby inside."
And the car seats.
In the car seats. He said, "If you're not going to give me any trouble," he said, "would you like to take your items out?" And I remember crying, and I remember saying, "Oh my God, they're about to take our car." He's like, "Yes, I'm going to take it if you can't make the payment right now." And he let me take all the things out. And he said that we don't do this because if whatever is in that car, they take. So I remember that being one of the lowest times, because we had to figure out, because that was our main.
Well, we had two vehicles, but now
that was my main
vehicle.
Point of transportation, because we were living in the second home and the daycare was in the first home. So I had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and have the children come, and I think we were 4 children in at that time. I think we were 4 children in, and so I was taking the younger 2. My husband was with the other 2 during the day while he did his own business, and that was a challenging time in our lives. And I want to say, like Greg said very early on, how did you guys make it through? Prayer, and also education surrounding financial health. Yeah, financial health education. So we got really educated on the laws. We got really educated on how to manage money. We got really educated on showing our children how to begin to manage money.
Because that bankruptcy was an eye-opener.
Yeah.
When you start navigating that process and recognizing, the paperwork, and you have to understand the language, and these are laws. This is not something that you're just doing just in happenstance. You are dealing in that particular area of law. And through that, we were able to rise like the phoenix, because now it positioned us to say, wait a minute, okay, it's not about accumulating things. It's about how I'm going to keep co-creating this space with this woman that I chose, and how we're going to do this effectively together. And as we said in the previous conversation, how do we make sure that the budget works?
Yeah.
Because now, as she was alluding to, when I had lost my position, we went from me making my mid five figures and the business, and then all of a sudden, when I lost that position, started a business. Now the business, her business is over here still doing good. Now I'm doing a startup, but yet we're living and
Upside
navigating
down.
like I still had this, mid five figure
The
salary
rudder.
coming in,
Yep.
and she's doing her thing over here. And then after a while, as the rudder cracked,
Yep.
and the rudder broke, and all of a
broke
sudden
down.
we learned into that. So when it comes to credit and the family, there are even times that we would even say, if you're a married couple and you have children, you need to have that credit discussion with your kids, along with the birds and the bees and stuff like that. If you're in these situationships or all the other stuff that we were expressing, whatever type of distinction that you're calling your relationship, you need to have these relevant conversations, because credit is needed.
Yeah, so there was another thing that we did. We got educated, but we also got someone that was a financial person that actually walked us through, because there was a couple of people that were instrumental in us getting back on track, because we had to learn how to do the system, but we also had to do it together. And during that time of our life, we were not speaking very well to each other.
Oh, hell no.
We were not.
And that's another hell no moment. Hell no.
We were not.
Hell no.
It was horrible, and because it was so much tension in the house.
And know why it's so much tension? Because number one, we didn't have forerunners who were able to say, okay, y'all can navigate, this is going to be okay. And number two, as we're being first generation having these experiences, now that created those levels of tension, conflict, arguments, and it's like, we could have kept this, and then now we were nitpicking at each other. Not so much that she was upset, I was upset, because as a man, you feel a way when it's like, yo, that's my bride that they just took. Like, wait a minute, I wasn't able to afford to take care of that payment. That does to us, from a masculine standpoint, that does something to you, because we are driven by our ego. But those relatable conversations that you're supposed to have around credit, and not even at times not being caught up in your ego and not being caught up in things, because you think you may be getting an asset, but it turns into a liability. So as long as you recognize that credit is a pertinent conversation that needs to be had, especially if you start talking about you want to get a condo and you want to get a home, or you want to purchase that vehicle. This is credit. Unless you walk into a dealership and saying, I'm going to plunk 50, 60, 70 grand down that I had saved up just to get a car. And most people, from a wise standpoint, even I would advise you never to do that.
So let's talk a little bit about credit so people can understand. So there's a couple of things about, there's credit cards, there's lines of credit, there's things out there that you can begin to look at. So understanding a credit card, that's first and foremost. And then you look back at a couple of the other podcasts. Earlier, I talked about early on in my teenage years, I accumulated credit cards.
That's some defaults.
Yeah. So in the credit card, the baseline, what I learned about credit card, if you're not able to pay off that credit card in that same month, you need to see about what that looks like.
Or there's another rule of thumb that comes into play. If you're going to utilize a credit card, and say if it's a decent sized purchase, if you cannot pay off that thing within 3 months, that means the credit card company is going to make a little bit of inches off of you, but you're seeing something that's going to help you. As you're walking through these different patterns and you're making these payments on time, and you're not being caught up just sending them the minimum, now you're recognizing that's going to enhance your score, and it's going to build your credit history.
Yeah, pause with that. The minimum.
Oh, you never send the minimum?
Let me tell you a story about the minimum.
Oh
my God. So I was paying my credit card. I thought I was doing it.
She got some work done?
I thought I was doing it. I was paying my credit
She
card.
got some work
and my
done.
husband was like, "What are you talking about? I've got some work
You
done."
got some work done. You know, that little lift. You got some work done. Come on, tell them about the story.
You always gotta go. You always
You
gotta
got to
just go.
lift. It's just a little lift. Just tell them the story about
You
the
always,
minimum
you
payment.
you
Look,
always
look,
gotta
look,
go
look,
like
look.
to.
See, you've been singing.
You always gotta go
Tell
to the left.
the
You
people
always gotta
want to
go
know
one time to
about the minimum payment.
always telling somebody telling
Minimum,
somebody
the
business.
minimum.
Anyway,
Even though they were
so
maximum, but it was minimum. You talk about the minimum payment.
so anyway, the minimum payment. So what I was doing, I thought this was back in the day. So I was paying a minimum payment, and I was like, why isn't this going down? So one day my husband gave me that's when they used to send the bill in the mail. And he showed me the interest rate. The bulk of the money was going to the interest.
It wasn't even touching principal.
It wasn't even touching the principal. So I was like, this is why. So if you send the minimum of $50, guess what's going to happen? $30 of that is going to go to the interest.
But you know what it is? Because the credit laws started to get augmented towards in the early 2000s, whereas now if you ever get a credit card statement, the company has to mandate, and it'll be on your bill. It'll show you what happens if you pay the minimum,
Yep.
and what happens when you pay it early, and how many years. And you start to get that eye opener where it's like, wait a minute, if I just send y'all the minimum payment, I'm gonna be paying for this
Yep.
television for 4 years. That doesn't work. So when
Still.
you become empowered
Yep.
to recognize that, when we became empowered over credit, and we recognize how we utilize our credit to be a blessing to us, but we also understand the responsibility in it, and we want to make sure that you're doing so.
So the
And
one
whatever this is
takeaway,
going-
if you don't take about one takeaway, don't pay just the minimum.
Oh no, don't never do that.
Yeah.
That's,
So we had a couple of questions that came in about how to stay on track with if you have multiple credit cards and if you have multiple open credit cards. How or what should you do with that?
you would look at your credit cards. You would find the one that has the highest interest rate, or APR.
Now, what's APR?
APR is annual percentage rate, which
See,
is
we learning today.
so now that gets factored in. And see, with credit cards, they smart. They fact that thing is factored daily. So there's, depending on the time of the month, there's interest accumulating if you have created a position on the card where they're generating interest.
Yeah. So there's a point here I want to say. So what we did, and this is why we talked about in the very beginning, co-creating partnership. If you have a business, this is where we started to accumulate a business credit. It's different than your personal credit, because your business credit will begin to have a name for itself, and it's not landed on Cheryl Clarke's Social Security number. So you are now having an EIN number. And as we built our businesses, we began to build the business credit. And we began to put things in the business name. And that's how you began to have that. And if you look at your score, it's going to begin, your personal score is not, your business score is not going to it's going to protect your personal score. So I want you to recognize that your business credit has a heartbeat too. So this is why you got to co-create with each other.
Now, what's the next question that came down the pipe?
Well, the next question, I will say this. I want to ask you this question. How am I doing with my credit now?
I would say I give her a B plus.
What?
She gets a B plus. Now, know why I'm
Yeah,
a
let me
hard
hear
professor.
this.
I am a hard professor.
Why do I get a B plus?
I'm talking to the people. The reason why she gets a B plus, because there's just certain things that if she just took it up just a little bit of a notch, she'd be rocking out with that A. She's right there. She at the cusp of that A.
So what is? Please tell the people and tell me what is.
No. That's bedroom talk.
No, it's not. That's
Yes, it
business
is.
talk.
No, it's not no. For us, that's bedroom talk.
No, it's not. No, that's what we got to talk about. We do not bring this into our bedroom.
We don't talk about
No,
credit
not
in the
really.
bedroom?
We need to have other conversations
You
up
sure
in the
about
bedroom.
that?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Don't lie.
Yes. You like bringing in the business. I try to turn it off.
Well, that's true. Well, you have to have those conversations and they don't necessarily have to land in the bedroom.
Yeah, we're going to talk
But
about
what
this.
I would definitely say is
There's
that
healthy
yes,
relationships.
Cheryl is definitely almost an A when it comes to her credit.
I'm an A. I'm
She's
always
a
an
B
A.
plus.
I'm an A.
She's a B plus.
I'm an A.
She's B
Say
plus.
that I'm an A.
No. Look, if you want me to say an A, say an A. I'm not gonna say an A today.
Well, thank you for joining us. Until next time, Cheryl here, and this is Craig.
Oh, she said this is Greg. I hope it said now I became second person. This is Greg. Okay.
This is Greg. Join us for our next podcast
Peace.
episode, and we'll be right with you, right back with the Couple Motivators.
Hey everyone, this is Gregory Clarke Sr.
And I'm Cheryl Clarke.
And we're here today to tell you about this dynamic book that we wrote together, which is called The Power of the 4 A's.
Yeah, the 4 A's really helped us in our marriage. And one of the first 4 A's is acceptance, and appreciation, affection, and agreement. You know, this book will help you repair your relationship. It can either help you to thrive in your relationship, or if you want to be in a thriving relationship, this is the book.
Well, when you think about this book has actually helped save our marriage,
Yeah.
which has influenced in how we was able to not only save the relationship, but also impact our lives and impact the lives of others.
Yeah.
So I wish for you today to take advantage of the opportunity to go to GregandCherylClarke.com to get your copy of The Power of the 4 A's. Why? Because you need this book in your library. You need this book as a tome that's going to help you in the apparatus of your own relationship. So once again, we invite you to go to www.GregandCherylClarke.com today to get your copy of The Power of the 4 A's. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Couple Motivators podcast.
And remember, keep coming weekly because there's going to be new episodes down the pike.
Remember to add us on your playlist on your favorite streaming platform.
And remember, like we always say here at Couple Motivators, when couples unite, greatness is bound to happen.